Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Ari or Aureline Bonin. I think I pronounced it better this time because we've been working together for not working together, but chatting weekly for a while. For anyone who doesn't recognize the name, you should though. He is the co-host on my other podcast, Advanced Real Estate Investing Talk. Ari is he's doing a lot of work on development, like real estate development, also personal development, but real estate development, commercial development. Maybe Ari, let's start off with giving us a little bit of an intro, sort of your background, and then we'll go into it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Glenn, for having me on your show. I was always interested in real estate. When I trained as a teacher back in France, and when I remember getting my first assignment in Paris and looking at buying an apartment back then, and for some reason it didn't pan out. But I remember back in the day already being interested. Always loved education, languages. I find that languages are a way to you learn through a language how another civilization approaches the world, and their vocabulary tells you a lot about what. And sometimes they have words that you don't know that don't exist in your own language, and so I find I was a language teacher, and then came to Canada about 15 years ago, and didn't work as a teacher, worked for a foundation. And all the funds that allowed the foundation to operate came from real estate. And behind the foundation was a real estate developer, David Azrieli, and I found his story very inspiring. And they had a book in their library called Real Estate Investing in Canada by Don Campbell, which I read. And it's interesting, in your introduction, you talk about personal development. And every time before I do something new, before I start something new, there is a phase of personal development. There is a lot of meditation and readings involved to educate myself about this new chapter, and that's what I did around 2013, to educating myself about residential real estate. The big lessons of this book I read, where you want to invest where there is a job growth, because job growth will mean population growth, which in turn will mean a shortage of inventory, increasing prices, etc. Virtuous cycle. And so that's what I did. I started investing in the Maritimes, and I purchased for pretty low prices, so was able to keep the units affordable. So that's I've been since focused on affordable housing. Also interested in mobile home parks. Purchased one in Canada, and then saw how it was almost a way of life in the US. In certain states, a lot of the population was living in mobile home parks. So I started looking in Arizona, because the numbers made sense compared to a state like California, and the climate was good for this type of housing. They would last longer, and I started investing there with some partners, and so that's my background so far.
No, that's great, right? And Ari is the one, he really does play down how much stuff he knows and how much property he actually owns. Sometimes I'm always astonished by it. So I'm going to talk you up. So anyway, Ari, so we wanted to talk about real estate development, commercial real estate. What are you doing in that field now? Like how has this progressed to that point?
Yeah, so early on, the people at the foundation told me about commercial real estate, but my first foray into commercial real estate was more out of was really random. My realtor at the time approached me and said, this couple would like it's their dream to run a restaurant, and there is this building for sale, a repo with the bank. and could you help with that and make it happen? And I was lucky enough that I was able to secure the financing and allow them to run to open their restaurant in a small fisherman fisher community in the Maritimes. And so that was my first adventure. So it was a moment and pop, and I learned a lot in terms of creating a lease agreement, and because it was all brand new to me. But yeah, and it's only later on that I saw how cap rates were compressed for multifamily that I started looking at alternative investments, in particular non-residential commercial. And I created I wanted to create a meetup group, and as soon as I saw a post on Bigger Pockets by a gentleman named Logan Hartle, I approached him and said, yeah, let's do a group together. So we called it the True Commercial. We meet twice a month. The first time is a live podcast interview where we invite somebody who does non-residential commercial. So we've had people in the self-storage space, industrial, a lot of industrial, because this is a Logan specialty, yep. And office, and then the second meeting of the month, we discuss deals we're working on, and more recently, so we had in the very early meetings, so that was at the beginning of COVID, we had somebody join us named Ash Patel, and Ash helped me through a deal later on, and then he started a mastermind and invited me to be a part of the mastermind, and I gladly joined. And we meet every Tuesday, and we meet at 7:45 p.m. and spend about 3 to 4 hours looking at deals together, non-residential commercial. And yeah, that's how I'm extending my knowledge about non-residential commercial.
When I started investing in the US, I did it by myself and had to go through the growing pains of doing that. GlennSutherland.com/coaching. A 12-week coaching program done 1 hour per week over Zoom from the comfort of your own home. Classes are kept to 5 people to be able to answer everyone's questions. Shortcut the process. Make fewer mistakes. Curriculum available at GlennSutherland.com/coaching. So are you looking at from some properties right now? Like, are you're going through them? Like, so you get together with Ash Patel every week, and then is he analyzing deals with you that are ones for you?
Yeah. So basically we bring deals, and he wants the room, to start analyzing deals without his input. Yeah. And he's a great mentor for that. And currently I'm working one of the strategies he recommends is to look at properties that are mislisted, advertised. And the way you do that is you look for commercial properties that have been listed by residential brokers. And so that's one way of doing it. So, and basically he suggests to create some bookmarks. So you find you identify a geographical area, and then you find all the brokers, commercial and residential, especially residential, that and who post the listings they have. And so I've done that for 3 markets in the US: Tucson, Arizona, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I'm using Ash's bookmarks. And
it seems hard to me. Like, how are you going to find those properties that are listed wrong? Like, do you have to look through every property and you're just trying to find basically a picture that is in the wrong field, a building that looks commercial?
Yeah. It takes a while, and it takes a lot of energy. And I know, so I like to translate goals into daily tasks. And so I use FocusMate to organize my time and in sessions. And so I have 4 sessions every week, one dedicated to each city. So I look at I have about 30 to 50 bookmarks. So I go through 30 to 50 lists, and but you get trained to it. Your eyes you recognize buildings, and also from one week to the next there is not a lot of new inventory. So So that's one strategy he teaches us, and so I've been doing that, and I found deals that way. And the other strategy is to try and get the property into to get properties that have high vacancy. And basically you take control of the property, you get the property under contract.
Yeah.
You try to get it for as long as possible, and then what he says to do is you test drive the property. So if you can get 60 days due diligence, so you're going to do, the different things you need to do for your due diligence, the phase 1 environmental and an inspection and all the rest. But also what you will do is you will join a Facebook group, a local business Facebook group, and see if there is appetite. You offer, okay, I have this space for lease, and you offer a referral fee if the person helps you find a tenant. And basically you test drive the property and try to find tenants and get LOIs, letters of interest, signs during due diligence, so that basically you create value without taking many risks, because you have the property under contract, and you just need to make sure that the wording is accurate in your contract, so that you're allowed to do that prospective work.
You mentioned finding higher vacancy. I'm starting to learn that I approached a lender a while ago and they wouldn't lend on stuff with high vacancy, but I'm learning that there's more lenders that are actually open to that. I'm just thinking, is the lending different for that? Like, is it almost like a rehab loan rather than a regular sort of long-term loan whenever you have high vacancy, or will they still put you into the same sort of programs as something that you bought was sitting at 95% occupancy?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can look at bridge financing for that if you need more time to fill up those vacancies. But sometimes lenders, if you have a good history with them, and if you have, on your team, people that have a history of, filling up vacancies, can look past the existing vacancies. And also it helps if you have been able to secure a letter of interest and a potential tenant.
Would you buy a property that's completely vacant?
If the information I find out during due diligence shows me that it will be easy to fill up, yeah.
Okay, because I know I've seen some of these buildings online where they're like, there's no one lived in them for 10 years, but it's like a 20 unit or 30 unit building, and my mind goes, I'm like, I'm likely doing all mechanicals, and it could go into an excessive sort of spending in order to get these. Even in the hard part about it is the loans are going to be expensive on something that large, and there's you don't have any cash flow. there's no tenants. It's I don't know.
You need to be careful in your capital raise, and also try to negotiate an interest only loan if that's possible. And I know, for example, if you take some examples, like there are products I would stay away from, like downtown office is the only chances of survival for that type of product would be a conversion to residential. That's what we've seen happen in Calgary, for example. There are grants from the government to help convert those office buildings into residential. But yeah, office, I would rather focus on suburban office with walkability. That's a key element, and not too many stairs.
So you start talking about different types of like commercial. Is there a certain kind that you're sort of aimed towards, that piques your interest more than other? Because when you say commercial, it could mean a lot of different things. It could be a multifamily, it could be, a business, it could be office. There's so many different things. Is there a certain one that piques your interest the most?
Yeah, two in particular, industrial, because it's performed so well, despite COVID, and especially, I like industrial that's smaller and multiple bays, so that you have multiple tenants, so that you leverage, because one of the big risk in commercial is vacancy when you have a single tenant.
Yeah.
So trying to focus on multi-tenant industrial and retail, multi-tenant retail. with services that are, you try to find services that are COVID resistant, internet resistant, and that basically your neighborhood retails are a good product that also I like.
And like, where is your focus these days? Because I know you've bought in the US. You mentioned Arizona. We talked about East Coast or Eastern Canada. Is it that you're open to any market or a specific market, or like where is there a focus for something for a certain place?
Earlier on, I realized that it was living in Toronto that the numbers just didn't make sense. So I had to look further, and so that has opened my mind to remote property management or doing things remotely. And in terms of markets, I like markets where the numbers make sense, and ideally easily accessible in terms of flights, and where the numbers make sense, where you have the good basics, like the population growth based on job growth.
So Ari, how do you give back to the real estate community?
So basically, one of the aspects is affordable housing. I know for good vibes and for karma. I remember when I first invested in the Maritimes, I would go to a restaurant, eat, and then I would pick up the bill for another table, just as a way of doing good. And I try to keep my rents low, so I try to practice affordable housing. It was possible because I purchased at lower prices, and the prices now don't really allow for this. I'm also I'm a member of a board of a non-for-profit here in London, and that helps newcomers find jobs. And I find, for me, it was key, to integrate, to assimilate to Canada, to find a job. Employment was key. So I'm glad to be a part of this organization named Well. And I have a podcast dedicated to commercial real estate, the Commercial Real Estate Podcast. And I try to feature, like I said, people that have, journeys from just individuals, not institutional investors, individuals that make it in commercial, to share hope and also tips on how they did it. And so happy to help people who want to get started. I could start a coaching program if ever that was needed, or a mastermind for Canadians wanting to invest in commercial.
That's great. If people wanted to track you down to figure out as you grow this and your information changes, or how do they get a hold of you to find out about these possible masterminds, or all the different things you're offering? How do they track you down?
TheMindfulInvestor.net. TheMindfulInvestor.net is my website, and you can listen to the Commercial Real Estate Podcast on iTunes, for example. And that's the best way to get in touch.
Awesome. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I think there's a lot of value, and I don't spend enough time talking about commercial real estate. And there's a huge opportunities here. I really need to do more of it.
There's a whole world out there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Glenn.